Hello, friends. Today I'm going to tell you a little bit about one of my favorite artists, and when we're done, you'll have some opportunities to try doing artwork in her style. So while I talk to you about her, I will show you some pictures of her and her work. Okay. So my favorite artist, or one of my favorite artists' names is Georgia O'Keeffe. And Georgia O'Keeffe was an important artist in the United States. And as you can see, she lived almost a century. She lived from 1887 to 1986. Georgia O'Keeffe fue una importante pintora en la segunda mitad del siglo XX. Me enteré de su trabajo cuando empecé a visitarla y eventualmente me mudó al estado de Nuevo México, que es donde hizo gran parte de su trabajo. El rancho donde vivió una vez es ahora un museo. So I first learned about Georgia O'Keeffe's work when I started visiting, and then eventually I moved to the state of New Mexico in the United States. And she had a ranch there where she lived for many, many years, and that ranch is now a museum, and I got to know some of her works there. Georgia O'Keeffe was born in the state of Wisconsin, which is a state known for its rolling green hills and its dairy farms. Georgia O'Keeffe nació en un estado llamado Wisconsin. Wisconsin es conocido por sus colinas ondulantes y sus granjas lecheras. Get my face out of Georgia's way here. There we go. These are some pictures of Georgia O'Keeffe when she was young. Georgia was one of 7 children, and by the time she was 10 years old, she knew she wanted to be an artist. She used to borrow art books from a teacher in town, and she would carry them home, and then she would try to copy the pictures at home into her own books and onto her own papers. She also knew that she very, very much loved to be outside, maybe because there were 7 children in the house. I don't know, but nature was very important to her. Georgia fue una de 7 hijos y a la edad de 10 años sabía que quería ser artista. Tomó prestados libros de arte y trató de copiar los cuadros que había dentro. También sabía que la encantaba estar en la naturaleza y pasaba todo el tiempo que podía explorando los campos alrededor de su casa. Georgia fue aceptada en una prestigiosa escuela de arte en la gran ciudad de Chicago. Georgia was accepted to a prestigious school in Chicago, in a big city of Chicago. And she moved there, and she was very happy to go to art school, but she didn't actually like the process of art school. She didn't like the way she was being taught, and she did not like living in the city after living for so long in the country. The way that artists were taught to paint, in fact, the way they often still are, is that they would go into museums and they will copy the works of others. So you can see the artist on the left, he's looking at a masterwork on the wall, but on the right is his easel with the painting he's doing. And over on the right, you see students on the floor sketching masterworks. El método tradicional de enseñanza de la pintura es hacer que los estudiantes copien obras maestras para aprender la técnica. Georgia lo hizo muy bien con esta tarea, pero no la disfrutó. Ella tenía sus propias ideas y quería experimentar. So Georgia did very well with this task. She painted traditionally very well and got awards for her work. She did realistic works of real buildings and people complimented her style, but she didn't like it. She had her own ideas and she wanted to do some experimenting. So what she did was she started to paint big. She would get these big canvases and she would fill the whole thing. Sometimes these canvases were so big she'd have to climb a ladder to paint on the top of it. Empezó a pintar a lo grande. Consiguió grandes llenos y a veces pintó cosas tan grandes que tuvo que usar una escalera para llegar a la cima. Pintó cosas grandes. Pintó rascacielos. She painted big things like cityscapes. And she also painted skyscrapers. Some pictures of those here. Hang on just a minute. I have to go somewhere else for a minute. Okay, here they are. Skyscrapers. She painted huge, huge, tall paintings of skyscrapers. She was fascinated by them. This is what she could see outside of her window when she was living in the city. But once again, she loved living in nature. This is not how she wanted to live. So she started thinking more and more about nature. And she wanted to experiment more with simple colors and forms. So she started to simplify. You see how she's really working with very simple forms and colors here. And then she started to do something that nobody really had done before. She started to take those huge canvases, those big paintings, and fill them with a small thing, like one flower. And she used vivid, vivid colors and got right up close. Empezó a experimentar con el color y las formas simples. Continuó pintando grandes, pero ahora pintaba cosas pequeñas y las hacía grandes. Llenaba un gran lienzo con una flor. Alrededor de esta época, se mudó a un estado llamado Nuevo México. Nuevo México tiene paisajes muy diferentes a los dos de Wisconsin y no tiene paisajes urbanos como Chicago. So around this time, George O'Keefe moved to the state of New Mexico. New Mexico has very different kinds of landscapes than Wisconsin. And very different, well, actually no cityscapes like Chicago. New Mexico doesn't have any big cities in it like Chicago. So she painted these mountainscapes. Una vez viví allí y allí fue donde aprendí por primera vez sobre el trabajo de Georgia O'Keeffe. Nuevo México es un lugar cálido y seco con increíbles montañas y formaciones de piedra. Georgia solía conducirse viejo coche por todos los desiertos y montañas en busca de lugares para pintar. Cuando encontraba uno, se detenía y usaba su auto como un estudio de arte. Georgia O'Keeffe drove all around the New Mexico deserts and mountains. The landscapes there are filled with beautiful rock formations, all sorts of incredible colors, deserts, desert plants. And so she would drive her car all over these mountain roads looking for the perfect place to paint. And when she found them, she'd just pull up and turn her car into an art studio. Georgia became very interested in some of the bones that she was finding out in the desert. So she started to paint those. Georgia se interesó mucho por los huevos que encontraría en el desierto. Al final de su carrera, perdió la vista por una enfermedad llamada degeneración macular. Tiene asistentes que la ayudan a pintar lo que estaba en su mente. In the end of her career, Georgia O'Keeffe lost her vision due to a disease called macular degeneration. It was very sad, but she had assistants who would help her paint the things that she saw in her mind. This is a picture of the sky. This is a picture of how she remembered clouds after her vision was gone. And this painting is as large as a full wall. It's enormous. They had to use ladders and all sorts of long-handled paintbrushes to get to it. Georgia O'Keeffe vivió en Nuevo México, en su rancho al que llamó Rancho Fantasma, hasta que tuvo 99 años. Hace unos años, una de sus pinturas de flores se vendió por $4.2 millones. At the end of her career, Georgia O'Keeffe continued to live at her ranch, which was called Ghost Ranch, and she lived there until the day she died at the age of 99. And just a few years ago, one of her paintings, one of the flower paintings, sold at auction for $4.2 million. Okay, at the end of this slideshow, which I will send to you, there are 3 sets of ideas. Hay 3 ideas para follow-up, okay? Cityscape, pasaje urbano, flores, flowers. Take a flower and fill a whole page with it. Or bones, huelos, my favorite. Find a bone, a skull. It could even be something from the butcher shop. Before you give it to your dog, you can draw it. All right, I hope you enjoyed this lesson. You can find out a lot more about Georgia O'Keeffe. She was a prolific artist. She did much work. You can look for her online. Enjoy your painting. Thank you.